a fever in him. He saw fantastic opportunities for Lick Observatory and for America. And he says, I'm going to get this sucker. This is a tough problem, and I'm going to be the one to crack it.
Meanwhile, opportunity is knocking on Einstein's door. His original mentor, Max Planck, is asked by the King of Germany, Kaiser Wilhelm II, to recruit the best scientists for a new institution in Berlin. Planck recommends the young man he considers his own discovery, Albert Einstein.
And they said, if we bring Einstein here, people will look at this and say, Berlin is where the action is. It's worth whatever it takes to get him here.
On July 11th, 1913, two men arrive at the Zurich train station, Max Planck and Walter Nernst, a renowned German chemist. They are hoping that a personal appeal will persuade the rebellious young scientist to return to his German homeland.
Two men, middle-aged guys in dark clothes, get off the train, and they go find Einstein.
They're so different. Max Planck is very proper Prussian, always very well-dressed and well-groomed, wearing the monocle, talking in very formal tones. And there's Einstein, who's refusing, even back then, to comb his hair and dressed in, you know, sort of old coats and however he feels like it, already starting not to wear socks. They make a great offer to him. He'll be a professor at the University of Berlin. He'll be a member of the Prussian Academy. He won't really have to teach classes. He'll have all of the research help he needs.
It was Max Planck. It was Nernst. It was the Prussian Academy of Sciences. It was the entire world of physics that had said no, bearing down and saying, we want you. Einstein did not answer the offer.
Einstein says, why don't you just go take a trip for the rest of the afternoon up the mountain?
I said, I'll meet you at the train station when you come back. And I'll be carrying a bunch of flowers. And if the flowers are red, I'm coming to Germany. And if flowers are white, sorry, no go. Thanks for coming. I've made the argument that Einstein delayed his answer to this question, in part because he sort of wanted to live with the pleasure of being so deeply sought after. But it's certainly true that this was not simply a snap decision.
As he often does when he has a difficult problem to solve, Einstein takes a long walk.
Zurich was comfortable. There was lots still up there. You don't just sort of walk away from that.
His wife really wants to stay in Zurich. On the other hand, they've offered him the greatest job imaginable. There was one other thing enticing Einstein to Berlin.
At some point, he received a birthday card. It was Elsa writing him a postcard. This must have exploded on him as, reawakening all these emotions.
Planck and Nernst come back. They're at the train station. Einstein is there. It was a dramatic moment. It was a self-consciously dramatic moment. There would have been a little dramatic flair there. He's holding his flowers, and they look, and the flower is red. Einstein says, gentlemen, I'll go to Germany. I'm going to become one of you.
By April 1914, Einstein's world is looking brighter. The solar eclipse needed to help prove Einstein's long-gestating general theory of relativity is only 4 months away, and Einstein is on his way to Berlin to join the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute, an elite group of scientists working under Fritz Haber, the institute's director.
Fritz Haber was one of the greatest chemists of the 20th century. He developed a process that could be used in producing an artificial fertilizer with the help of which millions could be fed. And he was a hero.
Haber and his family host Einstein's wife, Mileva Maric, while she looks for an apartment for herself, Albert, and their 2 children. Haber observes that resettling in Berlin seems to be unsettling relations between Einstein and his wife.
Mileva always was a brooding and somewhat despondent woman. And in Berlin, it gets much worse. He's dallying with his cousin, Elsa. Einstein is a very brutally honest guy, so every now and then he apparently would tell Mileva about Elsa. And they start fighting with each other.
Not surprisingly, the man who approaches the universe in a unique way has a rather unconventional approach to married life.
Einstein gives Mileva an ultimatum. If you want to stay married to me, you have to do the following things. It's a contract. It says you have to bring me my meals in my room. You have to speak to me only when I want to have conversation. You're not to expect intimacies from me. More power to her. She doesn't sign this contract. She decides, no, I'm not going to go for that.
She goes and stays again with Haber and his wife Clara. In that time, Haber is sort of a go-between and is negotiating.
He's trying to hold them together. He's the one who keeps seeing if maybe they can come to an accommodation. They both respect him.
But Haber's best efforts to save the Einsteins' marriage are a failure.
The decision to split is finally irrevocable, and Einstein says it's not going to happen.
Lacking enough money to support two households, Einstein makes Mileva a brazenly self-confident proposition.
He offers her a deal. He says to her, one of these days, one of my papers will win the Nobel Prize. If you give me a divorce, I'll give you the money. Now, this is an amazing sum of money. She could end up very wealthy, and she could move back to Zurich with the kids. He is sure he's going to get a Nobel Prize. Mileva's not quite sure. She's a scientist. She calculates the odds. She consults with Fritz Haber. She decides to take the bet. Mileva takes the two young boys, and Einstein accompanies her, along with Fritz Haber.
Einstein has to go to the train station, say goodbye to his boys.
And he starts crying. Haber's never seen him cry before.
This was a really quite devastating moment for him, and Haber was the man he was with, sort of holding him up through this moment.
Einstein has staked his children's future on winning the Nobel Prize, by no means a sure bet. He is dependent on Erwin Freundlich and William Campbell to bring him photos of the total solar eclipse so he can see how the stars seem to move. Shortly before saying goodbye to Mileva and the boys, Einstein has another farewell at the Berlin train station.
There is Freundlich with his two buddies about to leave Berlin. Einstein is there. He's very, very anxious.
Freundlich and two of his colleagues are lugging 4 astronomical cameras and cumbersome equipment on a long and treacherous journey.
They're going to take a train and go all the way to the Crimea in Russian territory.
Freundlich and Campbell hope to maximize their chances of good weather and good eclipse photographs by camping in different sites. Freundlich's party sets up in southeastern Crimea. Campbell locates near Kiev. They are both determined, despite the frightening and spreading rumors of a world war. Then the worst happens. On June 28, 1914, the Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria is assassinated. The German Kaiser declares war on Russia, and Einstein's eclipse expeditions are suddenly in jeopardy.
Einstein is really worried.
Einstein has no way to warn them.
Didn't know what was going to happen.
And then, deep in the Crimean forest, the war comes to Freundlich's camp.
Freundlich suddenly sees some uniformed Russian officers coming to his camp and asking him for his papers. Heart starts going beep, beep, beep.
Russians come over to see what they're doing and realize these are Germans with a telescope.
And they start tearing down his equipment. Get off my equipment. I have to observe an eclipse. These are our possessions now. Your country declared war on us. You have nothing to say.
They arrest them immediately. There's no questions asked, and they are considered spies.
Herr Freundlich, you are now a prisoner of war. What? Campbell, an American, is neutral. And the Russians allowed them to continue to observe the eclipse. They had come all this way, spent all this money, survived the fact that war broke out, and clouds ruined their plans. Total failure.
Not only does Campbell fail to get his photograph, but he is forced to abandon his state-of-the-art equipment. Because he is an American, Campbell is not arrested, but he leaves for home a defeated man.
Campbell says one wants to come home by the back door and see nobody.
Einstein in Berlin is shattered.
The expeditions are failures. Freundlich and his team spend several months as prisoners of war in Russia. For Einstein, it is a disaster. Proof of his most revolutionary theory, general relativity, is slipping between his fingers. The outbreak of World War I leaves Einstein's Russian eclipse expedition in shambles and threatens to further obscure the long-sought proof of the relativity theory on which Einstein has labored for years.
The war killed communication between scientists. The open exchange of ideas was gone overnight.
Ties were cut.
Once the United States joins the war, astronomer William Campbell sees things differently.
Campbell dedicated himself to the eclipse problem, independently of his former colleague from Germany, who he now viewed as the enemy.
In Berlin, the whole atmosphere changed. When Einstein looked out of his window, he would see a lot of patriotism. In his eyes, a whole nation went crazy.
All of Einstein's expectations of the kind of city he was going to live in disappear. They're gone.
Hundreds of thousands of German young men marched enthusiastically.
His best colleagues, Planck and Haber, were enthusiastic about the war.
His close friend Fritz Haber, like Einstein, was born German and Jewish.
Fritz Haber converted to Christianity, and he tried to assimilate as much as possible. One of his great moments of pride when he actually received a commission in the German army. Really almost unheard of award for a converted Jew. Einstein saw this as ridiculous. Haber said, I'm a chemist. I understand the chemistry of the chlorine atom very well. I know that chlorine gas is poisonous. Can I turn this into a useful weapon? Haber felt he could construct a devastating enough weapon that it would end the war quickly, thus a humane outcome.
The institute Haber directs is turned into testing gas to be deployed on the Western Front. Einstein has an office in Haber's institute.
Einstein was disgusted by the eagerness with which Haber, first amongst his colleagues, but many of his colleagues, went looking for ways to kill people and kill them more effectively.
Haber was one of the first to develop terrible weapons out of the potential of science.
Early in the war, Haber's new mystery weapon, poison gas, is tested on a Belgian battlefield.
Haber was there and said, release the weapon. This low cloud drifted over the battlefield, and the cloud just sort of forms. This was the first time this ever happened. Troops had seen things that looked much worse than this cloud, and the effect was devastating. I mean, the troops were just blown out of their trenches.
Haber saw thousands of people die, thousands of soldiers, about 5,000 soldiers.
Your lungs begin to fill with fluid, and as the deterioration of your body continues, you can lie there on dry ground, in effect drowning. Albert Einstein takes a look at his close friend and his, intimate professional colleague and says, in effect, you're pathological. This is grotesque. He writes a letter to a friend in Switzerland that says, all our supposed technological progress is like an axe in the hands of a madman.
Haber never resented it. And it's so strange that he befriended